And I'm actually going to get right into it. And you really want to know how. You know, how can I blaze my own path? How can I be successful? How can I follow the path that someone else has laid for me to be successful?
What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 228 of the Campus Cuts podcast, a multi-generational, multicultural podcast episode where we chop it up with the guests in the barbershop of all walks of life. But as you see, we're not in a barbershop. We at our house. We're doing it virtual edition because that's how we do it. Just have a special guest. She is an interviewer. She's a reporter, yearbook, hustler, grinder, literally just finished class, decided to come up on the podcast. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Wow, super excited. Thank you so much. Seriously, thank you so much for making the time.
Of course.
So the interviewer is being interviewed. How does it feel?
Well, it's definitely kind of weird because I never am really in the situation. I'm always the one doing the interviews and always the one asking the questions. And sometimes when I do the interviews, I realize like, oh, dang, I'm asking them some hard, interesting questions. Like, I don't know what I would respond to that. So definitely being on the side of the interviewee, it's very interesting.
Yeah. So basically why this started, of course, since you asked me those questions too, a little bit about the podcast. It first started with student government, but technically it was my baby and I was like, not going to give it to them all the way because I got to take control, got to take creative control, get your royalty check. But it was an opportunity to be able to create more of a space for each and every voice at Baylor, but specifically targeted for the underrepresented voice at Baylor. And it just turned into a thing of its own. And now it's like a kind of like a talk show. It's a show. It's a thing. It's crazy. But be able to highlight the guests and talk about, just society and culture. So yeah.
Definitely. I actually listened to some of your podcasts and I found them very interesting.
Really?
Yes. Whenever you first contacted me, I was like, dang, like, let me look into this. So I searched you up on Spotify and I was like, oh, like, this is actually super interesting. Like, for example, like, I'm from Romania and like back home, we don't really have this like opportunity to like, talk about like our life and like what we do and stuff as students.
Right.
Because for example, our society there is very focused on like adults, not really students. So like we have this thing where we like have a lot of respect for adults and we don't really look in their eyes when we talk to them. So like our voices aren't really heard just because of the way the society is structured. So it's really interesting that like this is something that you could do here.
Right. So wait, which episode did you listen to?
I think I listened to the last one. I forgot the name of the person. I probably sound like so mean right now, but it was really interesting.
Jacoby?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember.
Okay. What you think of it? Like, I would like the feedback from the interview, from somebody that does this all the time, because I'm just having fun.
Oh no, the questions are definitely really, really good, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay, thank you. Well, you're on the hot seat now. That's actually really good. So, of course, before we start, what is your name, your year, your major, in your hometown? You did mention about Romania, so we definitely gonna dive into that and how you got here. So let's get on started.
Okay, so my name is Andreea Loghin, and I am a medical humanities major at Baylor University. I'm minoring in Spanish, so I'm basically trying to learn my fourth language now. And I am originally from Romania, which is a country in Europe for people who may not know, because everyone thinks Rome, which is in Italy, not Romania. So I don't know why. And then I moved to the United States in like beginning of 2016. Okay. So I've been here ever since. I did high school here and I started college here. So yeah.
Okay. Wow. So talk about that experience about being able to like that transition. And also like, you mentioned how, of course, whenever American society is completely different from European, African, and just the idea of like how you mentioned about like the adults, like it's mostly focused on them. What type of culture shock did you experience when you came here? And why did you even decide to come over here for high school and now university?
Yeah, definitely. So it was really hard in the beginning. I would say like the first 6 months. So obviously in Romania, we don't speak English, we speak
Right.
Romanian. And so I learned English in middle school and high school, the way you would learn like a second language here. Like I guess Spanish is the most common one right now that people learn. And so I learned English that way. So I kind of like knew all the rules of like grammar and stuff and like some vocab, but like I never actually spoke it because we didn't really get the chance to. And so I came here, and first off, I would just be in class in high school and they would just be talking to me, and I was trying to translate from English to Romanian the whole time. And I would like totally forget what the professor said, totally forget what the student like or my friends were saying to me. And I was like, dang, like how am I ever going to catch up? Because I was constantly translating. Even when I wanted to talk, I would have to like translate from Romanian to English, and like halfway through the sentence I would forget what I wanted to say because I was doing the whole translation process. So that was probably like the hardest part about moving here, just the language barrier. And also I didn't really understand American culture. So it was really weird for me when we changed classes and we changed the people we were in the class with, because for example in Romania, from first grade to fourth grade, you have literally the same 30 students with like 6 hours a day with you in the same class.
Right.
And fourth, like fifth through like eighth, same thing. And like we're really, really tight. Like, so here, whenever I was going to class and they gave my schedule, and I saw that I was like, I had like different like people in my classes every other class. I was like, wait, what is this? Like, how are you supposed to make friends like in this class? Because we're not really like that outgoing in Romania. Like we don't just go up to people and be like, oh, like, yeah, you're in my class, like how are you? We have to be introduced to them. So I have a friend who has a friend and they introduced me to them. That's the only like way we kind of talk to them. So that was kind of hard for me because I never did that thing where I would go up to someone and be like, oh, like, hey, like, that was definitely like something weird. And also going back to the language stuff, it's the way you say things here is different than the way we say it in Romania, like the way we formulate our sentences.
Right.
So sometimes like I would say something and I would come off as like really like aggressive or like not offensive, but like people would take it the wrong way. And then I was like, no, like I didn't mean it that way. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's just how my brain works. So yeah, that was definitely really interesting. So yeah.
Wow. So did you move by yourself or you moved with your family?
Oh, my whole family moved here. My parents actually wanted me and my sister to go to college here, and my mom had her sister living in Houston, where I live right now. And so we decided to come here, and that was kind of the bus to like get here, if that makes sense, because we moved like pretty late in like my high school career. Like I was in like midway through my sophomore year, that's when I moved. Me and my sister both actually skipped grades. I skipped the grade, my sister skipped 2 grades. So she actually started college at 16 at Baylor.
So she's at Baylor right now?
Yeah, she's going to be a sophomore next year. But she is not even supposed to be graduating high school if she was with her normal class right now. She would be in like 12th grade or something like that. So yeah, she skipped 2 grades. I skipped a grade. And so yeah, that was interesting.
Wow, that is amazing. So now you talk about skipping grades. Was it because of the credit and like the education level from Romania and then how that transferred?
Yeah, so in Romania, what you did like in algebra 2, we did in like 5th grade. Like
Whoa.
Yeah, we were doing things like so like early on. Like I did 3D geometry and like I was solving that kind of problems in like 7th grade. You haven't even done that here. That's like a whole different class. We do calculus in like, I don't know, 9th grade there. It's really intense. Plus I had a lot of hours because we don't have this like schedule where you have the same classes every day for 7 days, how it is in high school here. We have, I think it's called a block schedule. And we have like classes that are like, we have different classes every single day. So I had 18 different classes a semester that I was taking.
Wow.
Yeah. So they just kind of transferred into like classes here. So they were like, you have a lot of hours, so just skip a grade. And I was like, okay, fine. Like, I'll do that. So yeah.
That's awesome. And yeah, like just talk about like you have that global perspective, which is definitely needed now because, you know, with the rise of globalization and how society is moving forward and we're so interconnected in a way. And that's just so valuable. And like, and see, the thing is about the States, it's very ethnocentric. Man, people think we're the best like at everything. And now you're just talking about the value of education and being able to learn so much at such a young age. Actually, one of my mentors, he talked about how he actually grew up in Germany at a time. And he said, yeah, the stuff that I learned in like middle school, they were doing in college. So, I mean, but it's great. He learned, right?
Yeah.
And so for you, whenever you're over here, like, what do you just think about whenever you like, are you thinking about going back over to Romania, or you're just like, I'm just here and I'm just going to do my thing?
Yeah, so I definitely want to go back and visit. I don't know if I want to go back and live there again necessarily. But when I first moved here, my goal was to go to med school and somehow end up going back for some time, not permanently, and actually practice medicine there and help children who don't have access to the healthcare that you have access to here. So
Right.
that was like one of my goals, but I don't think that I would want to move there permanently, just because like if I have kids in the future, I kind of want them to like not have to go through that transition of moving back here, because ultimately I would want them to go to college here like I did. So I'm really torn on that. I'm not sure, but as of now I'm here with my family, so that's really good. Like I don't have any plans of going back.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right. But okay, that makes a lot of sense. That's actually really good. And like whenever I do talk to people, especially like first gen, well, literally immigrants or first generation Americans, like in the way of by that stupid articles on freaking Yahoo and all of them, like they messed up. When I meant by that, I was born here. They
Yeah.
all have this notion of do want to go back and want to go help out what's going back from their home country and their home pride. And now for you, like you know, we're in a world in a space where finally culture, diversity and inclusion is talked about a lot. Finally, but now for you, I wanted to ask, like, what does it mean, that type of pride of being able to understand where you are, where you're from? Because usually when you're around other people, some people they know their heritage, they know their background. Some others they don't. They only know the American way. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So I think I've discovered who I am, and I like really came to like appreciate like my background and my culture when I moved here, because again, back home everyone's just like me. So when I was there, I was like, I'm not really into like wearing like the national clothes that we have, or like our whatever, or going to like cultural events. But when I moved here and I like realized, I was like, dang, like I like me and my family and like the Romanian people, we're different from other people. We need to celebrate that. So I started to go to like more Romanian events at the Romanian church we have in Houston, or just like trying to connect with like other Romanian people from the area, or even at school. I actually met some other Romanian students at Baylor. So that was really exciting. And so I feel like after I moved here, I started having a sense of like pride like surrounding my country. So I don't know, that was really really interesting. Like it took me a while to like, I don't know, come around that and like start feeling that way and talking about my country in that way, because back home it's kind of like there's a lot of problems just like in any country. So we have problems with corruption and things like that. So that's not exactly something to be proud of. But when I came here, I like started seeing like the nice parts of like where I'm from. So that was really, really interesting.
Right, right, right. And then like pardon me, I am not too well versed on the history of Romania. But then was it a part of the breakup of it with the Yugoslavia war or no?
I don't think we were. They didn't really talk about that in history. They just kind of mentioned it in Romanian history like once. We had a lot to do with the Roman Empire, like back in the day, and the Ottoman Empire afterwards.
Right.
So we had a lot to do with them, but we kind of like fell off the map after that. Yeah, no, we didn't have anything to do with the Yugoslavia breakup, I don't think.
Okay.
So,
Cool,
yeah.
cool. That's cool. Well, that's really dope. Now, talking about your like transition at Baylor, you and I we talked, and we love our school. We love our Baylor. We do love Baylor for what it is, like the values that it represents. But I mean, like, why did you decide to come to Baylor first of all? And what are some of the things that you did notice that like were super great, but also you're like, nah, that needs to change.
Definitely. So, when I first came to the US, I really did not know where I wanted to go to college. I just knew I wanted to go to college because, I mean, American colleges back in Europe are viewed like this amazing thing, and like everyone wants to go there. So I was like, any college is fine. But then I kind of started looking into it, and I knew that I wanted to go into medicine. And so I kind of looked it up, and like my 10th grade self was like, oh, best pre-med programs in the nation. And I was like, oh, Baylor. And I was like, dang, like this school looks cool. I looked on their like online tours and stuff. And I was like, oh, like I like how it looks. It like reminds me of Europe because it's like an older school, right? So the
Right.
architecture culture is really nice, and Europe is like that. So I was like, dang, like this looks like a small European city. Like this is really cool. And then I was reading about like their, Christian like background and like culture on campus, and that was something really important to me because Romania is a very like religious country. We're actually mostly Christian Orthodox there.
Mhm.
So I like when I came to the US, that was like a shock to see, not in a bad way, but it was really shocking to see that there are other religions in the world, not just Christian, because
Right,
Europe is predominantly Christian.
right.
So I was like, dang, like this is really interesting. But at the same time, I kind of want to like go to a school that like has the same values as I do and be on the same page with like other students. So that was something really, really nice about Baylor, that like their Christian mission. And so I was talking to my mom, and obviously my parents are like immigrants. So you know how immigrant parents are. So I was like, Mom, like I want to go to this school. And then my mom looks at it, she's like, where is it? And I'm like, Waco. And she's like, Waco? I'm like, yeah. And how far away? And I was like, Mom, it's like 3 hours away. And she's like, dang, that's like a whole other country. Because in Europe, we don't ever drive 3 hours to
Right.
go anywhere. It's like a different country there. So she was like, I don't know about that. So I had to do a lot of convincing with my parents to let me go here because it was too far away from home.
Really?
Like in European distance, yes. In Texas, we've learned that it's really not that far. You could drive 8 hours and you're still in Texas. So I mean, it's a little bit here. But yeah, so my parents thought it was really far away. So throughout like my high school experience, I kind of had to convince my parents that I kind of wanted to go here. Plus, like the price of Baylor's kind of expensive, and so I had to deal with that stuff on my own because my parents didn't know anything about it. They
Right.
just they were like, figure it out if you want to go, and I'm like, okay. So that's why I picked Baylor, just their Christian mission. But one thing I noticed on campus, that I would change is I wish that they would have more like cultural awareness. I mean, I know they're trying and they have a lot of events, and the Department of Multicultural Affairs is doing like a great job so far. But I think there could be more in like different departments. Like, for example, I work for the Yearbook. And so I was a student life editor, which is like basically all the events we have on campus, DIA, homecoming, all that stuff. They fall in my section. It's like 70 pages of the book, more or less. And so throughout the last few years, I've been trying to like include more like cultural organizations like the Asian Student Association or like the Hispanic Student Association. So just kind of like broadening our perspective on the world and trying to cover those events versus just like Baylor only organized events, if that makes sense. So I think that's something that fix just the cultural awareness on campus.
Right. That's so true. That's so true. And yeah, just talk about more about that. Like, you are the student life editor. And not only that, but it's so crazy because you are, I guess you consider that's journalism, right? You're journaling, that's all that. And for somebody that's in the pre-med background, and somebody that's so heavily more scientific left brain, and then you're doing this thing that's more right brain, and that you have been doing for a while now. You've won national awards. I'm like, I didn't know there was a national award for Yearbook. Like,
Yeah.
talk about like what developed, like how did you start getting to that passion, and why you still continue to pursue it today, and why do you think it's important for you to be in that space?
Yeah. So I kind of was born into it back home. So my parents had like a kind of like a local company, I would say, for like videos and photos for like weddings and like different events and stuff. So they dealt with that. They did that for like 12 years when we were back there. It was like my dad's full-time job, and my mom kind of helped with the business and stuff. So I kind of was like born into it. Like I always saw my parents doing some kind of like graphic design, like video editing, photo editing and stuff. So I like found it really cool. So when I was like about, I would say 13 or 14, my dad gave me one of his old like DSLR cameras, and he's like, oh, you can have it. So I like started taking pictures of people, just like portraits and stuff. So I kind of started like a little business of my own there with that. So like photos and visual arts were my thing. And so when I moved here in my last like year in high school, I realized that they have this thing called the Yearbook, which we don't have back in Romania. I was like, oh, this is cool, whatever. I applied. I got in, and I ended up being like one of their editors-in-chief in like 2 months somehow, with no like previous experience in page design, just kind of pictures. And so afterwards I was like, ooh, like I really like this. Like this is so different from everything else I'm doing in school. And I was like, I kind of want to keep doing it even in college, because I know like you like as a pre-med student, you want to get involved in like a lot of like sciencey things and science clubs and all that. But I think it's definitely really important to also get like outside of your bubble and do something that's different. So Yearbook is that different thing for me. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into it. I've been on the staff for 2 years now, and I'm planning on being on the staff next year as well. So I'm very excited about that opportunity.
Okay, so now for somebody that's listening to this and wants to be like, okay, I want to be part of the staff or part of your book, plug them in, give them a little bit of the information. How could they be in that space to be able to create dialogue for other people as well?
Yeah, so actually the applications for this year are unfortunately closed, but at the end of every year, the applications go out on the website that we have for Yearbook. It's Baylor Roundup, and it's like a Baylor website, and you can like apply there to be on staff. That's how I actually did it when I applied as a freshman. I kind of like went on the website and I was like, this is what I did. This is my, they kind of ask you about your experience, like if you are like comfortable using Photoshop, InDesign, all those design like software that we have. And I mean, they don't normally base their, like they don't only base their decision on like your skills in like InDesign or whatever, but like they want to see that you have like some experience in the past and that you are able to grow. Because my past editor-in-chief, my freshman year, asked her, I was like, why did you pick me? Because looking back at my work from high school, I was like, how did I do this? Like I've evolved over the year, right? So I was like,
Right.
how did you pick me for this? Like what was going on in your head? And she's like, well, I saw like they had potential to like grow and like better yourself. So I was like, and I saw that you were excited to like get the job because we did like a phone interview. So I was like, dang. So yeah, that's basically like kind of what you need is like the excitement, the drive to want to do that, and just like some sort of experience in journalism, like some sort of experience in writing. Because right now I know, like I told a few friends to apply for next year's staff, and I was like, oh, you can apply for like a staff writer position or like a copy editor position, which is just they deal with just text. And so I was like, they're like, oh, I don't have experience in journalism necessarily. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Just send in like some of your like work that you wrote for school, like some of your papers and stuff. Cause like they don't necessarily look for like experienced journalists. They just look for people who can write and who can learn. So that's definitely something that I would tell someone who is interested in applying.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, that formula of first, like, I think that's like, now the job, and like that's so similar to what the job market is looking like, and just like with any field, because whenever you come in, I don't know, sometimes for me, whenever I look at like society and how people try to say, oh man, look at that person, look how far they got. Whenever they talk about their story, they said, I was boo-boo, I was crap, I didn't know, but what I was willing to do was I had enthusiasm, and I had the ability to grow and wanting to develop that the opportunity to grow. And it sounds like that you had that perfect formula that wanted to start like, okay, I'm gonna start as this, and now you're like this, and you're gonna continue to grow in that. And it's really fascinating because it just seems like that's a common theme in that. I mean, I'm not sure what would you have to say?
No, I definitely think that's true. Like you just have to like put in the effort. My dad always said it's 1% talent and like 99% work that you have to put in. So definitely just, I mean, you might not be as talented as the next person, but at the same time, if the person with the talent doesn't put the work in, then they're not going to get the benefits of that. So I feel like putting in work and being dedicated to what you're doing and persevering is like really, really important when it comes to anything, honestly, because no one can tell you can't do something. It's only you that decides that. So.
Right. Hey guys, that's a gem right there. Very important. But now talking about that, and understanding that again, going back to that immigrant idea, what is like the view of like the Romanian work ethic? Because I know like America's very bustle, and of course, Europe is like that sometimes, but I know it tends to be a little bit more calmer. But I never really, man, I haven't done my research on Romania like that, because I only know one girl from Bulgaria. Shout out Taya. We went to high school together.
Okay.
But I never really not understood, but never really got that insight of like the Romanian lifestyle and like the ideas of work ethic and other things like that. And I wanted to bring you on and see like, what is that? What is that like?
Yeah, so I think this is pretty general across Europe, but you were definitely right when you said we're a little calmer about our work. So we do put the work in. Like, for example, my mom was a nurse back home, and she's a nurse right here as well. So I can kind of give you like a comparison between the two. So back home, she worked in a doctor's office, and she was a nurse there. She worked like, I don't know, I would say like 4 or 5 days a week, and she would work for like 4 hours, and that was like a full program, and she had like a fixed salary, so she didn't work by the hour there. And like at her job, she would have like a month of paid vacation every single year. And that's really common across all like professions in Romania. Like that's something that's like a national law. And I know that's the same thing for Germany, for example. I have some friends who live there, same with Italy. So we have a lot of like paid vacation, so we can like stay with our families and stuff. My mom did not work on the weekends either, ever. And they also have 2 years of paid stay at home if you have a child. So it's basically childcare for 2 years, and you get paid for it. It's as if you're going to your job, but you're staying home with your child to like raise them. So I think that's definitely really, really important. I like the way the American society is, that like everyone's working hard to get what they want, but at the same time, I feel like they should be a little chiller about it. Like they're really intense. Like for example, even for Yearbook, like I put in like a lot of hours a week to finish it, and we have deadlines and stuff. And I feel like if we had a Yearbook in Romania, the deadlines would be just a little chiller and just kind of like more on your own time. Don't get me wrong, this is on my own time as well. It's a student like work study job, so it's still on my own time. It's still pretty chill. But like in Romania, that's probably why we don't have Yearbook, because it's kind of intense. So yeah, I think we have a lot more free time, because when I moved here, like I started not seeing my parents as much as I did back there. Like I would literally like be with my parents for like 10 hours a day, but we would go on vacations, road trips, like just randomly, and it was great. But here we don't really have that. We have to kind of plan ahead, which is still fine. But yeah, it comes with the move, you know. So.
Right, and that's so true, because I mean I haven't gone to Romania, but I've traveled to Germany, France, England, where else have I traveled? Spain. And so in this situation, like life is definitely a lot more relaxed, especially in France, especially a specific parts in France. It's like everything's like like relaxed. And I remember my professor always talking about that, and how the Eurocentric idea, like there's something, and I really feel like that's and that's the thing with American culture, very individualistic, come with your bootstraps, go, go, go. But then when you look at the human condition, you look at psychology, you look at anthropology, the idea of humanity, because we're supposed to be in tribes, and the idea of family is very important. So what would you say is like your view on family? Because you spent a significant part of your time with your family during your years, until now you came plopped here. And of course now you're about to be an adult and whatever. But what type of impact did that family time have on you as a person today?
Yeah, so I think no, that was really, really important, I think, because when I moved here, I realized that like the relationship I have with my parents, my family, my sister is not something that's really common here. So like I would talk to my friends, and I would be like, oh yeah, like I told my mom I did this and that. I'd like talk to my mom every day. I like call her, even in college. I literally call her like a bunch of times a day. I'm like, Mom, I ate chicken nuggets. Like, like how are you doing? And I'm like, Mom, I did laundry. And she's like, oh great. Like I always have that like constant conversation with my parents. I know I can tell them anything. Like we have open conversations every time, and they like put a lot of their trust into me. Like it's kind of scary to move to a different country and then have your kid move to college, like in a system that you don't understand. And so I feel like my parents, like I built that relationship with them over the years, and they come to really trust me, and we like both trust each other. Because when I came here, it was really, really interesting to me how like I would talk to my friends, and they're like, yeah, I can't wait to move outside of my, like out of my parents' house. And I was like, well, it's not like I can't wait to move out of my parents' house. Like it's not like I want to stay home because I want to be coddled by my parents, but at the same time I love my parents and I want to be with them, and like family is really important to me, and like being close to them and like being able to see them and talk to them and hang out with them is really important. Not because I'm scared of a change, because I mean I moved to a different continent, so change is really not a problem, but just like being close to my family is really important. So when I was hearing people, they're like, oh yeah, I want to move across the state to California, or move like across the country to like some other state, I'm like, my parents would probably move with me. Like they would come and state as me, like not in my house, but just there, so they can be like close to me and my sister. So yeah, that's the society we have there. Like our parents don't like make us leave. We're still dependent on our parents in college as well. So our parents want to take care of us in college and like as we like transition into the adult life, because I like what I've noticed here is a lot of like parents are like, okay, you're in college, you're on your own now, you're an adult, like figure it out. My parents are like not like that. They're like, we will help you with whatever we like need to help you. Like my parents gave me my car, my parents did this and that for me, so they do a lot of things for me just because they like consider that I should only be worried about school and not like making a living while
Right.
like struggling with my classes. So I've had a lot of friends who are like, well, my parents don't give me money for that, like you're really like not, they were saying I'm like really like spoiled, but I think they meant fortunate that my parents do that. I don't think this is spoiling, this is just like the way my parents want to like deal with their children. So
Right.
yeah, that's the difference that I've noticed here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. I know like the idea like of being spoiled, and because like remember everybody comes from such a very different background. I know that okay, like my dad helped me out with my car as well, and and it's in the sense of okay, like my scholarship didn't necessarily go well. The very first semester I came, so my dad's like, "Hey, Cap, you're good, we got you," and I'm like, "Whoo," because that bill is like.
Baylor bill, like when I get the text, I'm like, oh no.
Oh no, right. But
Yeah.
it's such a blessing and unfortunate thing, like to be able to have your parents and your family, because that's powerful. Because at the end of the day, when you look at it, like the best, whether it's the best businesses or just the best, like the best thing does come out with family and having that family unit and core tight, because that will like honestly will proceed with like generations of fruitfulness. I mean, shoot, man, you look at all the kings and the queens and everybody out there. They're like, okay, we're not gonna get anybody from the outside. Son, daughter, you're next.
Yeah. No, that's actually what I'm learning about right now in my Spanish class, in Spanish civilization. I'm learning all about the history of Spain and their monarchs. And it's true. It's true.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Now, for this next question, I wanted to get like a little one. I mean, of course, deeper. Is in the sense of how has your identity shaped your worldview? Specifically, in the sense of being a woman. I know, was it March is National Women's International Day month. Pardon me, and just like walking through that. And just like with all the, because of course, the world is so quick to put labels, and I feel like labels really do limit a person, but I guess to make it easier and to classify to help things with that. Like, your walk of life, how has that continued to shape you in the way that you continue to move and interact, and hopefully like what type of mark that you want to leave?
Yeah. So I don't think I was ever like conscious about like the disadvantage, like, or the discrimination that women experience whenever I was in Romania, just because no one really talks about those issues. I feel like ever since I moved to the US, I became more aware of like a lot of social issues that I was not aware of back home, because first off, we don't have the same problems as here. We
Right.
like, obviously we have still discrimination against women and stuff like that, but obviously we only have like one race there kind of, so we're just kind of like, we don't have like racism or things like that. So when I moved here, it was kind of like shocking in a way, but like at the same time an eye opener to realize that there is like a lot of things that are going like wrong in the world. And I like had to like pretty much like shape my like whole worldview in like a matter of like a few months, like
Really?
just kind of learn as much as I could, because this information is not like available, not necessarily not available, but it's not, I don't even think of looking it up when I was back home, because like I didn't even know about this. Like it's not broadcast on any news, it's kind of like local news, European news, so we don't really hear about what's going on in the rest of the world as much, just kind of like what affects us as a country. And so I kind of had to shape my like view of like everything in like a few months. So that was definitely really interesting. But one thing that you mentioned with like labels and stuff, I actually, so it's really interesting because I am not from here, right? But most people can't tell that, because they're like, oh, Andrea, you speak English so well, whatever, you don't have an accent. And so they automatically label me as just like a white American female who's lived here most of her life. And then that's what I was saying, whenever I would say things a certain way, they would take it the wrong way. And they'd be like, how come you said that? Like, what are you so they would totally forget that I'm not like from here. And so they would like take it the wrong way. So definitely labels are pretty interesting, like until you talk, like when you start talking to me, you're like, yeah, totally, she's from here, like why would she ever say that, like what is that, like why is she saying that America's not that great, like what are you doing? And so then I'm like, I have to explain myself, and I'm like, well, technically, like let me tell you why. So that's definitely really something that I had to deal with when I moved here.
Yeah, that's true. Wait, and then so what are some of the issues that are happening in Romania? Like,
So,
oh,
yeah. No, go ahead.
yeah, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
No, definitely. Like corruption is like it's a really, really big deal back there. Our government is very corrupt, and they basically like steal money and funds and stuff from like the taxpayers and whatever. And they have like mansions in like other parts of the world, so that's a big deal there. They like the most recent thing was they wanted to like pass this law like 2 years ago where they were saying that the government officials cannot be prosecuted for their crimes.
Oh, wow.
Crimes, which they got a bunch of people in the streets, like televisions from like Europe came and like recorded those protests and stuff. So like corruption is definitely like the biggest part of the like problems that we have there, because we were actually like a communist country up until I think 89. So my parents actually lived in communism for a minute when they had the revolution, but then like the Socialist Party took over and all the corruption started after that. So like everything just kind of went downhill from there. So that's one of the reasons why my parents actually wanted us to move here, me and my sister, so we can have like a better chance of getting like the pay and the compensation for like equal the work we put in. Because I wanted to become a doctor, my sister wanted to be an engineer, so a doctor there makes basically the same as like a nurse or like whatever. Like they don't really have that big of a salary even though you put in like 12 years of work or something.
Right.
So yeah, my parents were like, let's just go. So
Yeah, and that's true, because that's weird, because going from like so a communist country to now more of a socialist country, and I guess so to put it in my eyes, I guess in American terms, that's from like extreme right to I guess extreme left. But then at the end of the day, they kind of feel they come from the idea of Marxism, right? And then and this idea of like unity. And so whenever you look at it, it's like, man, no matter what happens, all the systems sound great in theory, but it's gonna be flawed because of these evil people.
yeah, that's the problem. Because I was reading actually like I was reading like an article, I think it was, about like communism, and people were like, why is the communism good? And people were like talking about it, and they're like, well, it's like the idea is good, it's interesting, but people will not like adhere to the idea like they're supposed to. Like the dictators are not going to follow the rules like they're supposed to, and like ultimately some people are going to suffer because of it. And like if some people means the whole country, well, that's an issue. So because my parents would, for example, get their like electricity cut off at 10 p.m. They would only like be allowed to like buy a certain like amount of food and stuff. So it was really rough for them. I was really lucky to not be born in that era. I was actually born like 10, 15 years later. So it was good for me, but my parents were telling me stories about it, and I was like, oh, this does not sound like a good idea. So
Oh, really?
no. No.
Wow.
So yeah, now it's fine. It's like a beautiful country to visit. We have a lot of things to see. It's just not the best government. So
Right. Man, that's so interesting. Like, see, man, I'm learning something new every day. I hope y'all learning something new every day, especially with this information, because I know like Romania is definitely a top tourist town, not tourist town, tourist country. Whenever you do pass through
okay.
there, especially like towards the eastern side. That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
We have
But I mean, of
translating
course,
here, so
Um, well, now my last question for you, for sure, is what do you want your legacy to be? Like, and this question, I love asking my guests this question because it just opens it up, and it doesn't have to necessarily be in America. Like, it can be in anything that you want. But wow, what do you want your legacy to be?
yeah, so I want to go into healthcare, obviously, as I've said before. And one thing that I really, really want to change and like influence is being able to provide healthcare services to people who cannot access them, either that being here or like in Europe or in Romania. So provide access to care to like undeserving communities, because when I first came here and I heard about like the whole insurance fiasco that you have going on here and like people dying because they don't have insulin available to them, I was like, wait, what? Like, what do you mean people are dying from not having insulin? Like, that's the thing. Like, what are you doing? So like, I think like definitely like helping in that way and like trying to like start an initiative in that way to like help people that cannot afford healthcare here or like back home is definitely something that I really, really want to do as going forward. As of at Baylor, I want to be able to continue to like in Yearbook, for example, to continue to include like different cultures and different backgrounds and get to meet as many people as I can and learn as much as I can, because honestly, so far Yearbook has been a tool for me to meet like super awesome people like yourself. Like I've met like hundreds of people from like hundreds of like different backgrounds and like different things that they have to say, and they're like, it was so interesting to see how passionate they are about like what they're doing. Like for example, Sing, or like I met people that like deal with Sing, people that like organize like Paranda, which is like a Hispanic Student Association thing. Like I just talked to so many people and I was like, wow, like this is so interesting. So going forward, I definitely want to make sure that their voices are heard in my section at Baylor for Yearbook. So yeah, I think that's basically it as of now. I mean, that question took me by surprise, but yeah.
All right.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And actually, hold on. Now, on top of that, what would you say to your high school self, like your senior year, like now with like all this experience, like what are two important things that you would tell yourself back in the day?
So my high school senior self, I would definitely tell them that you can do whatever you put your mind to if you just work for it. I never thought I would be able to go to such a prestigious university in the United States. And so getting here and doing everything that I'm doing here is really, really like mind-blowing to me looking back. Like during my high school years, I was like, dang, like I'm never going to do that. Like I'm never going to be able to do that. But just pushing forward, and as you were saying to me earlier, just taking it one thing at a time and one day at a time is definitely really important. So I would also tell that to my high school self, just take it slow. Everything will like sort itself out eventually. So yeah, that's definitely like two things I would say.
Yeah, this is some good stuff. Wow, that's so great. This is my last segment of the show. It's called the Speak Life segment. The word says a good old word. But also like it's a universal law, like what you speak will manifest. And if you speak life, life will happen. If you speak death, death will happen. And I think it's a great opportunity to speak life into you and to give you, there's a phrase here, I love it. It's called giving the person their flowers / appreciation. So here it goes. You are extremely talented. And the way how you continue to, no, and persistent. I mean, yo, when I was supposed to like interview, respond to the email for the Baylor 10, you were going. I was like, man. I was like, okay, this is nothing. And you're like, there. I was like, oh shoot, the email again.
Better answer. I'll find
okay, again. I was like, who is this girl? Who is she? What the heck? Huh?
Hey, listen, it's my job to be annoying. That's how I get to the hundreds of people I need to get from. Yeah.
But like just in that, your persistence and your commitment and actually having a deeper understanding of your story, it is truly astonishing to see how you literally came over here, plopped here, at an age where, most people are like 16 or even our age now are not even thinking about, all right, what does it take for me and my family to literally move to another country? And the way that you communicate effectively on other people's stories and creating a space and a dialogue for them to be heard and advocated. It's just an honor and it's a blessing to have this conversation face to face and understand that we can laugh and we can joke, but also just be able to see that, your passion is evident, your fire to be able to help other people. And so with that, I just want to say I'm super grateful for you and all that you have done, and you're appreciated. If you have not heard that, I thank you. I thank you for the work that you're going to do, and I thank you for just all that you have done and how you're able to accomplish everything. So just know that I'm super proud, and I'm so grateful that you were able to be on the show.
Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity. It was definitely really, really interesting to be able to think about the questions that you asked me. Because again, I am usually never interviewed. So just having to like answer the questions that I ask my own interviewees, it's really, really like a great opportunity to kind of like look inside and like, reflect on like my own person. So thank you so much for this opportunity and for everything you did for Yearbook for me as well, all the interviews and the annoying texts I've been sending. But yeah.
All right, y'all. That's it for episode 228. We are out.